Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Temple City Council, February 4th, 2021. Currently, it's about 5 minutes after 5. Is that me? Please rise as Mayor Pro Tem Judy Morales leads us in the invocation, followed by our pledge of allegiance, which will be led by the City Secretary, Ken Morales.
Join me, please. Gracious Heavenly Father,
Up to you.
asking for your blessings. We want to thank you for all that you do for us each day. We want to praise you for your faithfulness. We praise you for your great power and love. We confess our needs to you, even when we struggle and worry. We get weary and worn, but you never leave us. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your care over us. We ask for your spirit to fill us, to draw us close to you, and to work your purpose through us. Lord, give us the compassion and empathy to understand what those in our community are going through. Help us to love them unconditionally. Help us not to judge or condemn, but rather come alongside, offer support, and be your hands and your feet. We come to pray for those who are sick and those caring for the sick. It takes a kind and selfless heart to care for those who are sick. And
So Father, we pray for them.
we pray that you would be their source of rest and their source of hope in such overwhelming times. So we pray for the blessings of protection upon all caregivers, our doctors, our nurses, our police, our firemen, all the support staff that make sure that they have what they need to care for the sick. Father, we thank you for your COVID-19 vaccines. We know it is through your intervention that this vaccine can prevent many from this disease. Thank you, Father, for your spiritual leaders and our national and local leaders. We ask for wisdom and that you continue to guide each one in all the decisions that we make and what we do will honor you and give hope to all others. Give special blessings to our cities, our citizens, our city staff, our mayor, our city council, and all those who give up themselves each day to keep our city a place that we call home. Father, we like to say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many abundant blessings. Thank you for the ability to be able to be involved in mutual work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you for the freedom to embrace youth or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us and for your grace. And lastly, Father, thank you for being the Prince of Peace. We ask you for that supernatural peace to reign in our hearts. Thank you for the simple but life-changing
Message of your
love for each of us through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. Our pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Okay, now we'll move on to the public comment section of tonight's meeting. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may do so. We ask that you step to the podium whenever you do speak and state your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And I hope you understand that there will be no discussion or action by the council during this public comments period. So we do have a number of people that have signed up. So if you, we want to hear from everybody. But if you hear your comments being spoken by the person that's speaking before you, if you're just going to repeat, what they're saying, again, do that if you would like, but if not, that's fine also. So first up on the list, we have Larry and Kay. Is it Boobert? Is that correct? Larry and Kay?
Okay,
Okay.
come on up. We don't want him to block the view of everybody. I'm Kay Boobert, and I live at 11950 South Whitehall. And we found out yesterday that there's going to be a subdivision at the end of our street, which we understand is going to only empty onto our street. We already have problems with traffic and with flooding in our area. We have a shop behind our house, and we've flooded quite a bit. So my concern is that when the subdivision goes in, I don't know what kind of flood control you will have. We're also concerned that it's only going to empty onto our street. We have a lot of traffic that cuts through from 317 going to the lake, a lot of 18-wheelers already, and what is it going to do to our street? So that's, our main concern is we're not against the subdivision. It's just that we'd like to see other openings and flood control. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Dana Carl?
Mr. Mayor, council, city staff, thank you for allowing me to speak today. Can I take this off?
Sure.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Dana Carl, and I lived at 8159 Aycock Road in Moody, Texas. My comments today are in regards to the Deer Grove, a planned development of 105 houses and 2 commercial lots on 78 acres located in West Temple, ETJ. It's item number 6 on the agenda today. I, along with many of my neighbors, have safety concerns in regards to increased traffic on these small country roads and the location of the main entrance on Aycock Road instead of the logical entrance from Highway 36. Aycock Road has a poor view of oncoming traffic on 36. By law, you're required to stop behind the stop sign before proceeding. On Aycock Road, you must move your vehicle the entire length before seeing oncoming traffic. My son was rear-ended and pushed into oncoming traffic at this very intersection. I will soon have a granddaughter driving here. So this is an extreme safety concern to me. The water drainage is already an issue prior to development and non-permeable ground, including 105 septic tanks. My neighbor, retired Army veteran Monty Powers, he had planned to be here today. However, he's in the hospital and unable to attend, and he asked me to include their concerns also. Water flows directly from the proposed development to their property. Normal rain is not an issue. But however, a heavy rain will flood their backyard and beyond that, their chicken coops and their garden. They're concerned how 105 homes will impact this. Surely it will compound the problem. There are 2 low water crossings on Aycock Road, and at times are impassable. Will this occur more often with this development? The Kidders, the Walkers, the Holts, and other landowners that will also be affected. I have to wonder, was this taken into consideration with all the studies? I have lived here for more than 50 years and have never witnessed the growth we're currently experiencing. Did the reports and studies include this rapid, unprecedented growth? It's 105 houses today. How many tomorrow? Shouldn't we be prepared for that to come? I was copied on an email from Election Judge David Carter. I'd like to share a small portion of the email. I have personal knowledge of the rainstorm effects on that part of South Whitehall. The concerns of the neighbors are rooted in years of experience. Any additional runoff from the many acres of unpermeable surfaces will, without any doubt, be a major problem for the properties, dwellings, and buildings downhill from the proposed development. By any standard of being a good neighbor, the developer and the city and county officials who are responsible for review, revision, and approval of this development will surely give full consideration that the design of this development include appropriate protections on the inhabited environment downhill and off from this proposed development. I met with the developers, Mr. Wall and Mr. Fuller, on the development site to convey my concerns. My concerns are flooding, drainage, water pressure, and entrance location of the traffic. I was worried the opportunity to address these concerns would be lost after today. Mr. Fuller assured me and then reassured me that it's not too late for changes, as long as they did not exceed the approved scope of the project. His thoughts were to maybe reduce the houses to 98 from 105, and if possible, move the entrance to Highway 36 instead of a small side road, and add or enlarge the detention ponds. He said he is contacting TxDOT to reevaluate the entrance and the TOPO, to address the lack of drainage and ditches on Aycock and Whitehall Road. And the final approval lies with TxDOT, city leaders, and county officials, per Mr. Fuller. I highly respect our leaders and the tough decisions that they face daily to ensure our safety. So when this development is reviewed again, I hope our safety concerns will be remembered. I pray for guidance and wisdom for our leaders to continue to make decisions that are right for today and 20 years from today. Again, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Wilson McGuire. Mr. McGuire. Tim and Mary Kidder.
Mayor, council members, and the rest of the people are here. Thank you for letting me appear today. I have much the same concerns that Ms. Carl had just a moment ago. I've lived on Aycock Road for 40 years. My house just happens to be the bottom of the hill. I flood before anybody else floods because it's right there where the low water crossing is. And my driveway is right there, and it floods up to my driveway. That's one of my concerns. The other concern is traffic. If they don't open it up to 36, then that means that 105 houses or even 98 houses are all going to be trying to come in Aycock Road or up 2409 to South Whitehall. The road can't take it. The county doesn't maintain that road any better than any other county road that's low traffic. We're not low traffic, we're high traffic. About 30 years ago, I brought a petition to the county court to have that speed limit lowered from 55 to 35 after my neighbors and I lost 5 dogs on that road because people were going through there so fast. That low water crossing right by my house, I've had campers fly off the back of trucks when they hit that. I have dump trucks that come down from Jimmy Don Aycock's little gravel pit. He's still selling stuff out of there. And they come down and they hit that low water crossing and they leave a little bit of gravel or a little bit of black dirt or whatever every time they hit that road too fast. The other question I have is what's going to happen about, since it's ETJ, does that mean Temple Police are going to come out there and take jurisdiction there, or is that going to be covered by Bell County Sheriffs? I call the sheriffs whenever I go on vacation because my wife and I go out and we're gone for 2 months at a time. We kept climbing the camper. We had to northeast or whatever. We haven't done it this year because of the COVID, but I don't feel comfortable at all because I know I had 4 kids that grew up on there. My neighbor had 3. A neighbor across the street had 2. They used to all wait in a little school bus shanty I had out in front of my house for the school bus. And I know what kids do when they haven't got anything to do and they're walking around the neighborhood. They're looking at things to get into. They're not trying to be mean or spiteful or vandalize, but they do. It happens. That's all I can say. And a fire, is that going to be covered by Moffett Fire or our Temple City Fire Department going to come on out there? Again, if they come in on Aycock Road, that blocks me. I can't get out unless I go back around the other way and come out Buckhorn Cemetery Road. And if it's flooded, I can't get out that way. Many times in my career working, I have had to sit at home for almost 4 hours waiting for the low water crossings to go down so that I could leave, because once they flood, that floods both ends of the road for me and I can't get out. And there's 4 other houses in that area that have the same problem. I want to thank you all for your time, but Mr. Wall never came around to say anything to anyone. All of the people that I have talked to and said that they were going to be here tonight or going to try, they said the same thing. Nobody has come around to tell them, do you have any yays or nays about this? I mean, it was just thrown on us at the last minute. If Ms. Carl hadn't come and told me about what was going to happen, I wouldn't have known. And that's a problem with the ETJ, because we don't get the paper. We don't get a Temple paper. We don't see any of this stuff anymore. And it's not on the news. TV doesn't cover it. So we don't find out until they're actually moving the trucks in there and doing all the digging and stuff. And then it's too late to say anything. So I wish you could consider our problems before you do this move and approve it to be on Acock Road in South Whitehall. It really needs to be an entrance on 36. Thank you. Yeah, who are they getting their water from? Are they going to cut into the Moffett water, or is Temple going to pump water out to them?
Understood. Next up, Lauren, is it Hines? Close? Yes.
So first of all, my name is Lauren Hines, and I would like to thank you guys for your time today. And I'm very sorry, like they said, this was short notice, so I feel very unprepared. But I know you guys have heard a lot about the flooding, and I did want to back them up because it is on the mscfema.gov website that there is a flood zone that goes across our road. And I'm not for sure, but I think the Kidder's property is actually in that flood zone, if I'm not mistaken. I do want to point out that I don't want to talk anyone out of this. I understand like the growth, and I think that that's a great thing. I just would like for changes to be considered to it as well. There are a lot of ash or juniper trees which are on the property, which we call cedar trees. And I want to bring that up because there's actually an endangered species, the golden cheek warbler, that live in those trees. So I would like for it to be considered to maybe not cut those trees down because there are a lot on that property. So at least retain the main trees that have been there for a long time that are established, because that'll not only help the endangered species, but it'll help us as a neighborhood because it'll cut down on the noise. And the other thing with that is possibly a privacy fence to keep the noise down as well with everything that's going to come with the neighborhood. The other thing that I would like to ask is that if they're going to be doing this, if they can give back to our community, not just take from it, not just build a bunch of houses on it. We want to make sure that the children are safe whenever they come out there. And I grew up out there, and they're right. We did go into other people's property and hang out. And thankfully, we never got hurt, but you never know. Like, you're out on someone else's property, there could be a hole someone could fall in, or a fence they could run into. Children get hurt very easily. Farm equipment is out there. So I think that a green space for children would be very important, especially nowadays, because I don't know if people notice, kids don't know how to play outside anymore. So they're more than likely going to get hurt if they're out in an area that they don't know how to play in there. I also was curious if how it was going to impact our water pressure, as well as Mr. Kidder said, so I won't get into that anymore. The other thing is also helping improve our neighborhood, giving back to our neighborhood, as I already said. It would be nice if they could increase the lot size, because a lot of the neighborhoods, or a lot of the houses in our neighborhood, are bigger lots or acreage, 5-10 acres. So if they could maybe do something similar to what's already there, that would be helpful. Because we understand if they're not going to develop this, then somebody else will. So bigger lots, bigger acreage, it'll at least prevent teeny tiny lots from coming out later on. So that's just something we'd like to consider, is just for bigger tracts to help give back to our community and help out there. So I think my time's up almost. So thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it. And Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you. Next is Johnny Wardell. Okay, thank you. James Arnold? Okay, thank you. Harry, is that Harry Gibbs, Harry Cobb? Okay, all right. Is there anyone on the virtual platform that wants to speak during public comments? Nothing? Okay, very good. Thank you all tonight for taking the time to come by and spend some time with us and let us know what you think about this project. That's appreciated. Moving on to item 3 is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by any of the council members, any item may be removed at the request of that council member and be considered separately. Council, this is items 3A through 3K. Is there anything that needs to be pulled for special consideration? Nope. All right, very good. Then I will entertain a motion on items 3A through 3K.
Mayor, I make a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. The consent agenda, which is item number 3, passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to the regular agenda, item number 4 is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning for North Point with the development site plan approval from Ag to Plan Development Single Family 3 on 135.389 plus or minus acres to a Plan Development Single Family Attached Dwelling 3 on 7.806 plus or minus acres, a Plan Development General Retail on 29.758 plus or minus acres with a conditional use permit to allow on-premise sale and consumption of all alcoholic beverages for up to 75% of gross revenue. Located east of State Highway 317, it's generally 2,500 feet north of Prairie View Road, and its address is 10,300 State Highway 317. Mr. Chandler.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. So if I'll just skip right over to the first exhibit, give you a little bit more background, but really just orienting you to the site. Oops. Oh, itchy trigger finger, excuse me. Yes, please. There you go. Thank you. All right, so you can see 317, that is the general retail property, just less than 30 acres. Adjacent to that, single family 3 in yellow. That's the majority, obviously, of the property, 135 acres. And then along South Pea Ridge, single family attached 3, which would be future townhomes. And so that is a 7.8 acre piece. And the conditional use permit for future alcohol sales, of course, would be limited just to future general retail. And so looking at surrounding zoning, you can see the piece of property we're talking about is currently zoned ag. It's to the north of the Mesa Ridge subdivision, which recently came to you all for a final plat for one of the phases. And then general retail to the south. So this general retail would be consistent with the general retail provided in that development. And also surrounding ag and other single family 3 and single family 2 properties. And so looking at our future development plan, you'll see corridor mixed use along 317, as well as residential and neighborhood services. And so the proposal is compliant with those categories. And when we look at the thoroughfare plan, North Pea Ridge, of course, is a community collector. 317 is a major arterial, and a proposed community collector would bisect this property as well, and we're working with the developer on that. And then future trails have been identified in the Trails Master Plan, and those would also be addressed with the platting stage of the property. And right now, the preliminary master plat and phase 1 are scheduled to come to P&Z in March. And so here's the property, undeveloped, and surrounding property looks very similar to the existing subject property, undeveloped, with the exception of the Bell Memorial Park Cemetery to the north along North Pea Ridge. And so looking at the development standards and comparing the single family 3 with single family attached 3, what we're showing here in green are standards that the developer is proposing actually to exceed in terms of those zoning designations and the minimums. And so really, I just want to draw your attention to the one exception to the minimum, and that's for the future townhomes to have 10-foot corner side lot setbacks rather than 15 that's required. Hey, Gloria, maybe you can help me out with this one. Yeah, thank you. So 11 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. 1 was returned in disagreement, and that was property owner immediately to the east, and 1 in agreement further south from that other property. Okay, so all right. Going in the backup. Maybe I'll use my left hand.
I'm lost.
I am left-handed. Well, I'm trying to go back a few slides. Oh, other direction, please. So the bottom line is we've got a number of conditions that are in your packet. And if you can go back a couple more slides, please. And so the conditions that I was going to outline are essentially just the different standards that they're going to exceed, that they've committed to, that we showed in the table before. The 10-foot single-family attached side setbacks rather than the 15. Keep going back, please. Probably about slide 6. Okay, and they're forward a few. 10, thank you. Almost there. There it is. Not going to touch a thing. Okay, so the standards shown on the slide here, the conditions are the different setbacks that we've committed to, as well as number 5 being that the residential lots that the developer has committed to provide 2 evergreen bushes, a tree, minimum sod in the front yards, which of course, as you all recall, are the residential standards do not require. So that's a commitment from the developer. Also, no development within the 100-foot Encore electrical easement, certainly without their approval. Ensuring that there's no light trespass from the general retail to adjacent future residential, and that's per 7.18 of the UDC. Authorization to allow the planning director to make minor adjustments or approve minor adjustments to the site plan, and that significant changes would have to come back to you all. And have a keyboard, that helps too. So, and 3 conditions related to the conditional use permit, that the conditional use permit, of course, is contained only within the general retail property, compliance with Chapter 4, of the City Code of Ordinances and then compliance with UDC Section 5315. And P and Z recommended approval on January 4th unanimously, 6-0, approving both the plan development and the CUP. And be happy to answer any questions. And just a reminder that probably best to take action on them separately, the PD and the conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler? No. All right. This item, item number 4, is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. If you would, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay. There being none, then I will close this public hearing.
Mayor,
Council?
I think there may have been some virtual
Oh, I'm sorry.
participants.
Yeah, I moved right on. We're okay?
Mr. Keela had indicated he wanted to talk on item 4, but okay, he says he's
He said
passing.
he's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Council, this item requires a separate vote on the rezoning versus the PD with a conditional use permit. So I will entertain a motion now on the approval of just the rezoning portion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize a rezoning on North Point Development Site Plan from Ag to Planned Development Single Family and Planned Development Single Family Attached.
I'll second it.
We have
Excuse
a-
me, and the general retail.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would, please cast your vote on item 4 regarding the zoning only. That item passes 4-0. Now I'll entertain a motion on item 4 regarding the planned development with a conditional use permit.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan development with the conditional use permit.
Second the motion.
Have a motion by Councilmember Walker. We have a second by Councilmember Williams. Council, please cast your vote. That item concerning the planned development on item number 4 passes, 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item number 5 is the first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance approving a development site plan for a proposed restaurant, retail, and medical and office development on 3.293 plus or minus acres addressed as 5720 South 31st Street. Mr. Chandler.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Okay. All right, so this is a site plan associated with a 2001 plan development, and that's a neighborhood service plan development zoning case along Blue Meadow at South 31st Street. You can see the location here, and so I wanted to point out some of the conditions that still apply to this project from that 2001 ordinance, including prohibiting a convenience store with gas pumps, as well as access to 31st Street, requires screening from residential properties. And our Development Review Committee did review this on the 21st of December of last year. And so we'll jump right into it and look at the site plan. And so you can see that to the right. So a variety of retail, medical office, and regular offices, as well as a proposed restaurant site along 31st Street. And so the neighborhood service setbacks and development standards would apply to this project, including a height limit of 2.5 stories. The parking requirements are satisfied based on the site plan that you see before you. Sidewalks would be provided along 31st Street, as well as extending the one along Blue Meadow Drive and providing a new one at Legacy Oaks on the west side. And so this project is also consistent with our comprehensive plan. And so you can see that there were 3 return notices, 2 in agreement and 1 in disagreement. And so staff recommends approval with the following conditions: substantial compliance with the site plan, that the subdivision plat would be required prior to development, 6-foot sidewalk along 31st Street, 4-foot along Blue Meadow, and the 5-foot along Legacy Oaks. Compliance with our performance standards related to light trespass. We just want to make sure that when we have a PD with general retail affecting residential, that we put that clearly in there. Also, the evaluation of the need for shared cross access easement to the south, and that was in response to comments from the developer to the south of Bellaterra, a request to have shared cross access between future retail to the south and this project, therefore not pushing as much traffic out onto Legacy Oaks. And then lastly, that the developer or planning director may approve minor revisions to the site plan if needed. And at the January 4th meeting, P&Z recommended unanimous approval, 7-0, for staff recommendation. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I believe the engineer perhaps is available virtually, and the developer is here as well, Mr. Gibbs.
Can you go back to the site plan?
Yes, sir.
Right there. Those 2 buildings especially to the, I guess that would actually be to the south, although it's showing to the west here, against Legacy Oaks, are those proposed to be 2-story?
I'm not sure. I'll let developer answer that.
You can come on up. And the only reason why I ask that is traditionally, especially when we just have, something this close that would overlook possibly into the neighbors' homes, whenever we're putting office up against homes like this, we want to afford those neighbors some privacy.
Right, and I concur with you, Mr. Mayor. We're actually planning to do office condominiums, and so that actually you won't have to necessarily lease. You can actually own your own building or part of a building. They will be single story. We recently completed a project in Cedar Park, very nice, all single story, and professional office where there'd be a realtor, psychologist, CPA, et cetera. And we also, one of our shortcomings there was we didn't have enough parking that we really needed. So we went on this site and said, okay, we're going to really blow it out and make sure we have plenty of parking, as well as including some electrical charging stations, planning for the future.
Okay.
The retail, by the way, the retail will not be 2-story either. It'll be very light retail. And if the demand's not there, we'd probably go back to medical space. Same thing with the restaurant. And it would be like a coffee shop or local restaurant that would serve the neighborhood.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, and I can stay for any questions, or I can.
Okay, explain the cross-access situation.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Actually, there's not an agreement on that because the current site plan, we've got our dumpster down on that end where there's a little site, and we don't know what they're going to do yet. So we'd have to discuss that, because that would be major change and costs that would be put on us that we would, if we were to agree with that. We have not spoken with the other developer. We'd love to talk with them, but they did not approach us.
That's
And
not a condition, that's just a consideration.
that's a consideration, correct. And so we would, we'd have to figure out where we'd move it to and parking spaces lost and all of that. So there would be an actual dollar cost involved that we would, we're not saying we would do it or we wouldn't do it, but that would be a consideration as well, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council, anything else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Any additional questions for Mr. Chandler? All right, this item is also subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, you may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Nothing? All right, very good. Then
Mayor, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Based on some of your questions, if you have a desire for there not to be a two-story development against those houses, you would want to add that as a condition to ensure that, understanding that the developer has no intention of doing that, but if you want an assurance, you would need to add that as a condition.
I think that makes sense. Okay, we're going to put it in there probably, just in case.
You said okay.
Okay, I got you. Thanks. All right, very good. Then council, if there are no further questions, I think I already closed the public hearing, but if I didn't, I'll do that now. And council, if you would please cast your vote on the system, or I guess I need a motion first.
Need a motion,
Yeah.
I move for approval of item number 5 with additional condition that they not be two-story buildings backing up to, is it Legacy Oak?
Sure.
And then the other staff recommendations. I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, if you would please cast your vote. Item number 5 passes 4-0. Moving on to item number 6 is to consider adopting a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Deer Grove subdivision comprising 78.736 plus or minus acres, 105 residential lots and 2 commercial lots with a developer requested exception to the UDC section 8.3 relating to payment of park fees located in the northeast corner of State Highway 36 and Acock Road. J. Hobson Survey, abstract number 381, in Temple's Western Extraterritorial Jurisdiction, Bell County, Texas. Ken.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And I understand that a lot of the folks here and who had comments earlier, it was about this plat. So but I wanted to clarify that during the platting process, if it does meet all of the platting standards, with the exception of this one that is before you, and that is related to park fees, that staff recommends approval, and P&Z did as well. And so it's a ministerial process. It's not a subjective process. It's checklist. Now, with that said, this is a preliminary plat. So a final plat would have to return, and I do understand that the developer, Mr. Wall, and his engineer, Justin Fuller, have been talking to some of these folks about potential changes. However, it does meet all of our standards, and so I just wanted to clarify that up front. With the exception of the public park fee, which is why this is before you. It's an exception to that. And so here, just to show you where that's located, it's within our northwestern extraterritorial jurisdiction along Highway 36 and Acock Road, and then Whitehall Road on the north. And so this is around approximately 78 acres. And as was mentioned earlier, it's 105 residential lots with 2 proposed commercial lots along 36. And because this is in the ETJ and outside city limits where we have no sewer lines, the minimum lot size for future septic is ½ acre. And so that is exactly what they're proposing. The Development Review Committee reviewed this on November 30th of last year and determined the project to be administratively complete On December 29th, a question came up about water provider, and it's not the City of Temple. It's the Moffett Water Supply Company with 8-inch lines throughout the subdivision. Wastewater, once again, it would not be on City of Temple sewer outside of the city limits, but would be individual septic systems per lot. And the park fees, the reason that it's before you would be a total of $23,625 to $225 per lot. Park staff supports this exception due to the fact that it's about 4.5 miles from the nearest public park, city park at that. And there are no plans to acquire land within the 1 mile radius that is necessary. And there are U.S. Army Corps of Engineer parks very close by. And so staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat and the developer requested park fee exception. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval at their January 4th meeting, 7-0. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure Mr. Wall or Justin Fuller would be available to answer questions as well.
Any questions for Mr. Chandler?
I'm wondering about, has the question about the drainage been discussed at any time?
Yes, ma'am. During the DRC process, I know their engineer has submitted the drainage plans. That's also coordinated with Bell County because this is in, of course, the ETJ. But to this point, in terms of the review at the preliminary plat stage, it was determined to meet the standards. Now, however, of course, the developer and his engineer are discussing with neighbors, and so if there are additional changes that can be negotiated, then that would be great.
And so tonight, all we're talking about are the park fees.
Yes, sir.
And upon, whenever a final plat is then presented to council, at that time, there will be a public hearing that if the neighbors, the surrounding landowners haven't gotten satisfaction from their talks with the developer and the engineer, at that time, they can then come back and air any sort of issues or grievances they may have. What I'm saying is this is not the final opportunity to say anything.
Correct. However, it would not come back to city council since this is the only exception unless another exception is identified during the final plat process, but most likely it would just go to Planning and Zoning Commission at that time. But of course, Planning and Zoning Commission has a public comment section as well.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll be in touch with the neighbors that reached out to us as well, just to make sure that they understand the timeline.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may just reiterate what Mr. Chandler said, both for council and Planning and Zoning Commission, you have no authority not to approve the plat if it meets the standards.
Checklist item.
So even if there's something that doesn't get worked out to the satisfaction of the neighbors, the Planning and Zoning Commission won't have the authority to turn down the plat because it does meet the standards.
Okay. Very good.
And one more quick question. Again, I didn't realize it's outside the scope of what we were talking about, but Mr. Kidder was asking about fire. Do you know, would that come from City of Temple? Or?
It would not be the City of Temple.
Okay. Moffett.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Because this is outside of the city limits, there are no city services provided.
Right.
They don't pay city taxes, and so no city services would be provided.
And we will not obligate the city to do anything. Okay. Very good. Understood.
Mr. Chandler, maybe just for the benefit, because a lot of the questions, as Councilwoman, it was asked just a moment ago, on the drainage situation, could you spend a minute just saying how that has to be engineered? Or could we get their engineer to just give a 2-minute
Sure.
synopsis of what has to be
I'll
done?
give my 10-second planner summary, and then beyond that, the engineers could give you a little more detail. But essentially, The post-development condition cannot change the flow and push additional water onto neighboring properties. So they're responsible for channeling that or detaining that additional water that the streets and building footprints and the other infrastructure would inevitably change. So
And
they were.
there are on this preliminary plat, 3 areas shown as drainage basins, detention ponds. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Tim, there's a question.
Yeah,
Is that-
this item is not
is it closed
subject
or-
to public hearing. Yeah. All right, council, are any additional questions for Mr. Chandler? If not, then I'll entertain a motion on item number 6.
I'll make a motion to approve item 6.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Walker. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, if you would, please cast your vote. Item number 6 passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item number 7 is to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting a resolution approving the substantial amendment to the Community Development Block Grant 2019 Annual Action Plan, including the funding recommendations. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Today, I can do it. Okay, so we're asking for a proposed amendment to our Plan Year 2019 Annual Action Plan, which is fiscal year 20.
Thank you all for attending.
As you all know, we annually receive CDBG funding from Housing and Urban Development. The primary purpose is to support activities related to decent housing, suitable living environments, as well as other opportunities for low and moderate income persons. Each year, we develop an annual action plan that sets forth the programs that will be implemented in that year. So as you all are aware, in March of last year, the president signed the CARES Act, which provided an opportunity for both states and local governments to receive funding to help support both economic and community development projects. There was a total of $5 million in the Community Development Fund, and of that, the City of Temple received over $368,000 in the first allocation and over $409,000 in the second allocation, a total of over $777,000. So what the council decided to do with the first allocation was to provide utility, rental, and mortgage assistance to individuals, families who had been directly impacted by COVID, as well as provide small businesses with up to $5,000 grants who have been impacted by COVID as well. So to date, we have actually exhausted all of the funding for small businesses, and we're able to provide $104,000 to 21 businesses. So far for individuals and families, we were able to provide over $65,000, and we have just over $17,000 remaining. Of that, what we're proposing, this is a little bit less than you originally recommended. If you remember, you had recommended 75% of the total funding from the first allocation for individuals and families and 25% for businesses. However, we are proposing today to reallocate some of that funding to provide additional funding for 2 projects that we really want to see happen. So this started in June. It's taken a little bit to use the funds, but we were recently awarded from the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs a little over $153,000. So that will provide rental assistance to us. So what we would like to do with the second allocation and a portion of the first allocation is develop a homelessness strategic plan to address the growing homeless population within the city of Temple as a result of the pandemic, as well as construct a East Temple Community Enrichment Center. And I'll go over those projects for you. So for the homelessness strategic plan, what we are hoping to do is have some specific goals and strategies on how to alleviate homelessness within the city, as well as address any equity issues that are existing in any programs and services that we have in place. We're hoping that this would encourage and as well as empower the community to be part of the homelessness solution, and also working together county with our county as well as cities within Bell County to have a shared vision in these goals. What we'll do, you've heard Ms. Myers talk about this as she's reviewed the business plan. What we want to do is look at all of the existing resources that we currently have, any gaps that we have in those resources, and identify ways that we can make those resources easier to navigate. And finally, any key areas where social services would be best located and what services should be provided to better serve the Temple community. The East Temple Community Enrichment Center. This is an exhibit that shows what this would look like. So what we're proposing with this is that essentially this would be, and this is the former funeral home, as you recall, located at the corner of Avenue B and MLK, which has been demolished. And so we're proposing to construct a brand new building at this location. They would provide job training and community, as well as community education. It will be a little over 2,800 square feet with 2 computer labs, 2 conference rooms, and also with it located on MLK, it will be very easily accessible to many people within Temple. The main sole purpose of this center is to provide home ownership classes, credit repair assistance, as well as budgeting classes. So you can see here from the exhibit, so where the 2 doors are at the top of your screen, that's Avenue B, and then the left side over there, that would be MLK. So you can see that you would enter in from the front as you would as you did with the previous building off of Avenue B, and you would enter into a lobby area. Next to that are 2 offices for staff members, as well as a spot there next to the offices for 4 also cubicles that could house future staff members. And then 2 computer labs, you can see there, up to 10 computers each lab, so a total of 20 computers. And then a very large conference room in the back that they would be able to cut in half and have 2 different trainings going on at the same time, depending upon the size. There's also restroom facilities as well as a break room for staff. So here is what you would see if you were looking at it from MLK Drive, really exciting. More of a modern look to the previous old building, but a lot of the characteristics that it had with the stone exterior, but really bringing in that modern feel with the glass exterior that you can see, and that's the conference room. This is a look from Avenue B, where you would enter in. Again, a nice mixture of the wood accent on the exterior with the stone, as well as the glass around there. And then here is the side of MLK as well, where you can see really well into the conference room. Just really will spruce up this corner quite a bit. This is the back side of the building, so it'll be adjacent to the alley that runs just east of the building. And you can see that there's a covered area adjacent to the building that would provide shading for maybe different activities that could go on here, but as well as from weather events. And then this is another area where you're looking at it from the open space next to the building, right by the parking, adjacent to where if the alley was behind me, it would be at my back there. So what we're proposing to do is a substantial amendment to our funds here. And so what we would like to reallocate a total of $172,000, as I was telling you about, from the individuals and families, but knowing that we will be, we do have the additional funds from TDHCA. The additional funds in our second allocation, just over $409,000, so a total of over $581,000. What we're projecting is that the homelessness strategic plan will cost about $100,000, and we will be able to utilize a little over $481,000 for the job training center. And that is, we've also have some previous funds that we have set aside in CDBG. So we're hoping that the total funds that we set aside with CDBG as well as the CDBG CARES Act funding will help us completely fund the job training center. So with that being said, I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Council, any questions for Ms. Smith?
This is wonderful. Really is going to be a great asset.
It's good use of dollars,
Mhm.
the federal government's dollars. That's always nice too.
Fortunate that we received them.
True. Okay. This item is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand, your virtual hand on the platform.
Come on up.
Ms. Crossley.
Hello, Mayor and council and persons. I'm Dr. Sanjanet Crossley, and good evening, everyone else. President of Citizens for Progress. We're excited for what is being done to address East Temple. I've been in Temple all my life, and I'm not ashamed to say 71 years I've lived here. I was born here in East Temple in a house before we had the Negro Hospital. And so I've seen Temple advance to what it is today, and to actually see this property improved, new life will be breathed into it with the allocation of these funds. And they will address some of the most needy people going forward that have not easily embraced some of the other opportunities to date. I'm a semi-retired social worker and the president of Citizens for Progress. So I know how people feel sometimes to seek help. So what we're doing won't be just a beautiful building on a corner, but it is a gateway to the east. We see all the fantastic things happening in the other parts of the city, but this will make our city well-balanced, because we'll be able to improve our citizens by giving them the opportunities to remove a lot of barriers. And we just know that we have partnerships with major providers in the city, the workforce, all the different entities that address what will help us, and banks and what have you. And so it'll be a maximum, to me, use of monies from various sources to empower people for the future. We realize we've had a pause because of the pandemic, but this was a time for planning. And so I'm excited as the president and as a lifelong resident that doesn't plan to go anywhere soon, and will be a participant in that building, that we will be glad to scream about it all over the press, where anybody that'll listen, to come there and have their life changed. I'll add, when it was a funeral home, my husband's body was there. It will be 7 years in July that he passed. And so it was a place of transition. I've been to many a viewing and many a funeral there in my lifetime. But this time it's going to be a transition into something in this life, not eternal life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Crossley. Very poignant. Anything on the virtual platform? Anybody else? All right, very good. Then I will now close the public hearing on item number 7. And council, I'll entertain a motion.
I move for approval of item number 7 as presented, including the funding recommendation.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams and a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, if you would please cast your vote. Very good. Item number 7 passes 3 votes yes and 1 in abstention. So, and thank you all for attending tonight, and this meeting is adjourned.